Welcome to Neuro-Revolution. The world was not designed for us, so we are creating a new one. Hear the stories of neurodivergent entrepreneurs, creatives, and changemakers. The rebel minds changing the world.
All right, so today I welcome Lauren Klayton, the owner and founder of Clarity for Your Chaos, a professional organizing business based in Colorado Springs. With a passion for creating functional, serene spaces, Lauren helps clients transform their homes and businesses by eliminating clutter and designing systems tailored to their unique needs. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for being here. I remember we actually had a conversation a while ago. I was introducing you to this idea of coming onto the podcast, so I know that there's going to be a lot of things we can talk about. But let's start with your journey and what brought you to this work. So would you share a bit about your journey to creating clarity for your chaos?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was a young child, very abnormal for a girl, and in the 90s to be diagnosed with ADHD. So I also had access to military. My dad was in the military, so we had a lot of really great resources that I was able to get resources for my ADHD. And then by using those resources, once I became a mom and I had been working with, a lot of other moms, I recognized that there were systems in place that we needed to help keep ourselves working, because ADHD is lack of executive function, which also happens to deal with organizing. So we typically don't organize well. So out of my struggle, I became almost hyperfixated on making sure that I had systems in place in order to keep my brain able to do the things that it needs to do, even though it's functioning on less than what most people are able to function on. And so then I had 4 friends in 1 week all tell me that I should be a professional organizer. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't think that it was a real thing. I just really liked helping people create systems and, clean out their houses and do a lot of stuff like that. So I decided to start my business in 2019, right before COVID hit, just to humor my friends. And here we are 5 years later. We have handymen, we have cleaners, we have organizers. We're a full service reset shop from everything from small pantries to water treatment facilities and rocket companies. Because we work with neurospicy people. So those neurospicy people also work in office buildings, and they need a little bit more help and attention than what most other people are able to provide them with.
I love that this business came out of your own journey and understanding of yourself and realizing hey, I struggle with these certain things, and yet you're also actually really good at doing that for people, like organizing and things like that, creating systems. And so you saw the need and you showed up to it in a way that's really, I think, honoring people. Because I remember before too, when you were sharing about your business, I really love that your approach sounds very holistic. So would you kind of talk a little bit about what is your approach when someone comes in and they say, hey, I need help with organizing?
So our approach typically is we like to take we'll take a 3-hour mini session with them first and foremost right off the bat, depending on the size of the project. Now, if it's a small pantry, we can just tell you right off the bat, okay, we'll do this. But a lot of times people are coming in for the systems aspect and then the decluttering later. And so we will sit down with them for a good 3 hours in their space, go over all of the challenges. I mean, are your kids sensory seeking? Are they knocking holes in walls? I mean, this is real things that happen with kids that have ADHD. Are we sensory avoiding? Do we need to create a sensory avoidance space where they can decompress so they aren't knocking holes in walls? Because again, let's be very honest, emotional regulation is also part of, ADHD being neurospicy. And so, I like to sit down with my clients and figure out the dynamics of the family or the household or the business, who you have working, what people need. And then we create a full-blown customized plan as to how we can delegate this out. And it could be everything from us doing everything. Like I said, we've got handymen, we've got businesses, we can clean, we can do everything, or we can piecemeal it out, and then we start here, and then you have homework, and then we come back in, and then you have homework, and then we create that deadline mode and that body doubling that people with ADHD desperately need a lot of times, and that accountability. So we love to be able to create this plan tailor fit to whatever your needs might be and whatever your budget might be. For the most part, we try to make it work within your budget. That means maybe you might have more homework, but at least you also have somebody holding you accountable. Because as much as you would love it to go to your plumber and be like, hey, I can't afford this, I'm going to do half the work. That doesn't always work with a lot of contractors, but in my field, as long as I believe that you have the skill set to be able to do some of the things, which sorting and organizing and teaching you is some of the things that you can do, then we can make it work for you.
I love that. You're really meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know?
goal. If you're in a mess,
And
you can't like expect people like to dig yourself out of the mess and then people help you. Like anybody that I've
yeah.
ever met is an overwhelmed mess. And so it's our job to reduce the overall load that they have and the overall task management. You know, like everybody's like, oh, I can
Mhm.
take this to this place, or I can do this, or I can do that. But really what we're doing is we're investing in you. And investment is the allocation of your time, resources, and energy into something to better your future. Well, organizing is just that.
Mm. Yeah, and I love too that you also like the way you're approaching it, the way you are, like there's no judgment around it. I think sometimes when we get really cluttered in our life, we can feel judgmental towards ourselves that we got to a place where like now it feels really overwhelming. But the way you're approaching it, you're like, this isn't a problem. Like we're coming in and we're here to help.
Yeah. Like, as long as you don't have a meth lab in your basement, I am not going to do or say anything. If you do have a meth lab in your basement, I will contact the police. Just so everybody is aware. I don't want
You
to do
have
that again.
boundaries, but
I do have boundaries. Boundaries are a real thing. But for the most part, like I'm here to help you with whatever that space might be. There really is no judgment. I mean, like we have done so many controversial rooms or spicy rooms or whatever you might need, whatever this space needs to do to serve you. We don't judge. I'm not Martha Stewart. I watched her documentary. She's pretty miserable, and that does not look like a life that I want. And I bring that exact energy into my clients because they'll tell me like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I have dishes in the sink." I'm like, the dishes' purpose is to get dirty. Let's just sit in that for just a second. That's the
yeah.
purpose of the dish. There's nothing moral around having stuff in your house. It's just stuff. It's just stuff. Is it functional? No. Okay, so let's make it functional. And then we can make it pretty. But really, there's no shame. And shame reduction is really huge in what we do, specifically when I'm on site with clients, because even though you might be paying for people to move stuff around, and even though, you know, like all these things, you're also paying for me to talk with you and help you with your mindset around how you're approaching your daily care tasks, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're pouring into your family, your time management, and shame reduction. You know, if you went to a military school, they utilized care tasks as punishment. So you grow up as an adult who doesn't want to take care of yourself because that was used as punishment. And I see this in, you know, Catholic schools, military schools, authoritarian places where people grew up. And that's what they do is they will say, okay, you did something bad. Now you have to clean. So then these people become adults because they're only clean when they're in trouble.
Yeah, well, and I feel like that happens in families too, right? That becomes like the punishment if you weren't doing what you're supposed to, then go like take out the trash or something. So that's a really interesting point. I hadn't really made that like mental connection that often we sort of associate like chores and things like that with punishment. And you're really helping people unlearn that story, that narrative, and like make it empowering.
Yeah. These are tasks you do to care for yourself.
Yeah.
That's why they're care tasks. Chores don't exist.
Yeah.
I
love that. Just get rid of that. It's care tasks. Yes, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds so, I don't know, like loving. And I just love like the energy you bring. You're like, I have a lot of enthusiasm. We're going to tackle this together. And that you personally come in, and I love that you yourself kind of oversee that like de-shaming, unshaming for the person, like as things are happening in their space and that's an intimate thing, right? It's an intimate place to be in someone's home.
Yes, that's
or
why we
business.
always say we're honored. Yeah, that's why we always say we're honored, because we really are. It is an honor to be welcomed into somebody's mess at any moment of that mess, whether it's your friend having a meltdown about, you know, her parents or her mom or her boyfriend or whatever. Being welcomed into that set of vulnerability is an honor, and we don't take that lightly. We don't take that lightly at all. And I think that is also something that sets us aside from other professional organizers, because I also have people that come to me and are like, I had somebody come and then they shamed me about my space. And it's like, okay, well, that's not helping. Creating that space where they can just be a mess and then be like, it's okay, let's figure it out. Like, and then if it is far beyond like what we can do, we'll be like, okay, there might need to be some more measures, or maybe we might need to get some different kinds of cleaners in here because we need to get it clean first and foremost. And maybe some stuff isn't going to be salvageable, but that's okay, because we're going to work around it and make sure that your space ends up being the healthiest space that it can possibly be in order to provide you what you need in order to be successful.
I know that because you said that multiple times. In order for you to be successful, and I feel like that's kind of the underlying mission too, right? It's not just about organizing; it's to set people up to succeed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. Well, okay, so we've talked a bit about like what you do. I also really loved when we were talking, hearing about you as a business owner and founder, and like how you approach leadership and being with your team, because a lot of your team is neurodivergent also, or all of it. I can't remember what you said, but
Mostly.
so mostly all. and and it was just really beautiful to hear your approach had a lot of grace and still that sense of like leadership. And so would you tell me a bit about like how you approach working with your team?
Okay, so I have no leadership training experience, except for my dad is a one-star general. So I have been taught about leadership since I was a small child. And the one thing that always stuck with me is that if I don't trust my team to do what they need to do, then I shouldn't have a team. So I have to relinquish control of the areas. And as a leader, like that's the part that's hardest, especially when you've built like your baby, then you want to make sure everything's always doing the things. And this goes for like household management as well, because if we look at household management, it's just a small business. You have, your chief financial officer and you have your operations manager typically. And usually those two things are delegated out. And I recognize my strengths and I recognize the areas that I don't do well in. I have dysgraphia and dyslexia. I move things around in my head when I'm reading. Numbers specifically are really difficult for me. They just transpose a lot. And I know that this is how my brain works. Angela manages the numbers. Angela does our invoicing. I will be straight up with my clients. They'll be like asking me about like invoicing and I'm like, here's the deal. I am not. I am not the one. I am the one that's here right now to help you in this space. And then the questions about the numbers, that's Angela, because that's Angela's bag. And when it comes to like Nick and what he's capable of doing, I fully trust in his leadership skills and the way he creates systems in the background, how he looks at things at a bigger picture. And I look at each individual person, not as an extension of myself, because I don't want, we don't need more of me. One's enough. We need more people that can fill in each other's gaps because we work together. My mom would always say teamwork makes the dream work, and it's cliche and it's ridiculous, but it's true because at the end of the day, I need a pit crew. And my pit crew is here in order to do all different things, and we all trust each other. And I also recognize when my team might be taking on too much and burning it from too many different angles. And I'll be the first one to be like, hey, no, ma'am, you don't get to work 60 hours and only charge me for 40. First of all. Second of all, no, you're not working 60 hours. You're going to burn yourself out. And third of all, I think that you need to start singing because I think that would be good for your soul. And as your boss, I'm going to request that maybe you start singing because that would be good for you. And I want to see each team member flourish in their own way. And that includes pouring into them that has nothing to do with my business.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, again, like when we were talking, I keep bringing it back. It was a great conversation, but you had said something about how, you've met other business owners in this town and they talk about like, oh, it's hard to find people to want to work here. And you're like, I have the exact opposite problem because I'm actually creating an environment that's really supporting the whole person as an employee. And realize you're saying here too, like the sense of like, this is a team and I'm not trying to just replicate me. Like I need your unique contribution.
Yes. And it comes to leadership. I hear a lot like nobody wants to work nowadays. No, people want to work. You just have to learn how to motivate them individually. And my generation and younger is not motivated by the McMansions and all of the money and the fancy cars and being able to have the clout and go to fancy dinners. We tend to be more geared towards community and having an impactful job and not hating what we do every day. And maybe if we had a McMansion, we'd share it with 4 of our other friends and it would be great. And right? Because like it's also learning your team members. What motivates Nick isn't the same thing that motivates Angela. What motivates Angela isn't the same thing that motivates Remy or Kirsten or Alexis. I have to actively understand each individual because they are individuals. And then I learn about want them. So even on onboarding with all of my team members, they each get what's called a gratitude form. And I ask them about how I can show them gratitude and what that looks like. And then they fill out like a basic thing about their favorite things, favorite smells, favorite scents, favorite places to shop, favorite little treats. Because then I can refer back to that at any point. Say somebody really loves, recognition in front of people. I can recognize them in front of people. Maybe somebody really would rather just have gift cards to Starbucks. Cool. Angela's love language is coffee. So if I want to make sure that she feels loved, I bring her coffee. Period.
I love that you ask it up front too. You're not like, you don't have to sort of like sit here and wait for me to see something that I'm grateful for. Like I am assuming I'm going to be grateful for you. And then I'm going to know before I even start, like how to show that to you. Just like such a beautiful way to start a relationship with somebody in that dynamic, in that context.
Well, shouldn't all relationships be starting off with gratitude?
You would think. I think in the work environment that can be hard. That can be hard because like you are doing something unique, which I think to a lot of us is like, well, this is obvious, but like for some reason people don't do that. But I so appreciate that you are doing that. And what have you seen is the impact of showing up this way for yourself and your employees and how you're creating this team and leading?
I would like to say that I've had team members come to me and say like, oh my gosh, I had my labs done. It's very clear that my stress hormones are through the roof. And then have them come back later after we've discussed that. And then been like, I had my labs done again. My stress numbers are way lower and I feel better and I'm doing better. And our numbers are better because they're doing better. As a business owner, my success is directly associated to the success of my team members. So when my team members are able to buy new cars, I feel successful. When my team members are able to go on vacation, I feel successful. When my team members are able to enjoy their life, I feel successful. That's the success for me when it comes to my team members. Because as the leader, I'm the leader. Everything trickles down from me to you. So it's my job to make sure that you're taken care of, because if I take care of you, you'll take care of this.
And you are seeing that. Like I remember you saying your business is really like exploded in a lot of ways. And so I love that you're really looking at it from both angles. Like as the leader, you're looking at it internally and then externally into what you're producing into the world and contributing. But that both of these are like equally important, and you really see that especially the internal like pouring into that will directly impact everything else.
Absolutely. You don't build a business, you build people. And then those people build a business for you. And then that becomes your brand. So I work with contractors all the time, and I always tell them like, hey, left-handed anger, friends, left-handed anger, right? But if you're throwing tools in your back shop, do you think your guys are going to want to come to work for you? Do you think that they're going to be consciously like driving your $100,000 vehicle? Well, if they're exhausted, run into the ground, and they're anxious because their boss is like all over the place? No, they're not. They're really not. And the answer to that is no. So when I've watched this happen, I recognize that I also set the tone. Like if I don't have my own anxiety under control, then my team members aren't going to have their anxiety under control.
It sounds like since you're showing up so embodied in this way of leading, that it's really impacting even like your contractors and those other businesses that you engage with.
Yeah, I really look at it as a ripple effect that I want to create through the community. And even though what I do doesn't really exist, and especially as the full service, like there are professional organizers, there are handymen, there are cleaners, but there is not somebody that will just walk in and fix your mess from start to finish. Like we are a full reset company for, like I said, anything from rocket companies, water treatment facilities, like large warehouses, all the way down to, neurospicy families that just need some more systems set up for them. And so being able to walk into these spaces and change people's perceptions as to how businesses run and take care of their team members, and then come back later and see that the businesses are flourishing, that they're doing better, they're making more money hand over foot. Their team members are happy to be there. I've seen companies where like they were not doing great. We came in and now all of a sudden like they've repaired family dynamics. Their kids are now working for them. They've sought, because I will send people to therapy, and not in like a mean way. I'll be like, hey, the ADHD in me sees and recognizes the ADHD in you. Here's a list of providers that you might benefit from. And I'm okay with that because I no longer am going to sit under the stigma that mental health is for people that are broken. If you have a
Mm.
heart, you go to a heart doctor. If you have a brain, you go to a brain doctor. And we weren't taught proper coping skills by generations in the past because they didn't know, and that's okay. But now we need to redirect. And so when I see some of these things that might be also beneficial on the background with the other support structures that I have in town, I will recommend it. And it does create a huge trajectory shift for people's lives. Huge.
Mm. Amazing, really. And so I want to kind of touch back again on that sense of like individually knowing your team members. And you've
Yeah.
mentioned like different ways you're doing that and then seeing the impact of that. And I know too, like, and even maybe just honing in on like what I like to call like the creating a neuro-affirming environment. And so with that, what are ways in which you really honor like the neurodivergence in your team and like navigate like maybe when they are overwhelmed or struggling or something like that?
Well, when we recognize the signs of overwhelm pretty fast, so we're usually able to catch it pretty early on, where most people like let it go until it's here. We catch
Yeah.
it here. I
Because
also
you're looking for it
recognize,
also, which I think is the
yes.
part of the key. Yeah.
Yes. Other things I do is for myself and my team members, I have a swing and we sit on balls and we listen to loud vibrational music. We do a lot of dancing, especially during meetings, in order to help with like dopamine. My team members that are working on projects like and have like work from home, they can work whenever they want. You want to work at midnight, work at midnight. Get it done. I know, I understand. Clock in. As long as the work's getting done, I have no reason to hound you. If I start seeing that the work isn't getting done, then I will start hounding you. But I don't have any reason to. And what I noticed with most of my ADHDers is that the more micromanaging you do, the worse they are.
Mm. Yeah. It's you're like, I'm not doing that.
So if
Completely
you Yeah. If you want them to become a tax credit for you when you're working for them, then micromanage your team members because they will second guess everything and they will have to do more, 3 times the mental work because they have to recheck it 3 times in their head before they even do it. And then they second guess and then you're reducing their confidence overall.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really love that there's just so much about you seeing the value in your team's unique skills that you're willing to be like sort of extra aware of how you can support them so that they can access those strengths.
Well, yeah. I mean, we create IEPs and 504 plans for kids in school in order to set them up for success. And then we drop kick them into reality with no support structure or even
Mm.
anybody to give them any kind of support structure in their everyday lives or at work. I mean, I've seen neurospicy people have to fight just to get a chair or just to have like the thing, goodwill. I had somebody who had to fight with goodwill to put a thing over the big light over their desk. And it's goodwill. Like, come on, man. Like, really?
Yeah.
Or like this person was 6'8" and they needed a very specific chair because the chairs did not physically fit them. And fighting with your company in order to just get a chair you fit in so you can do your work. Seriously? Like, of course you're not going to have people doing great jobs when they can't even like fit in a chair to do the work.
Mm. And I know that for you, this is very much like of course,
Yes,
but I think people need to hear it.
Yes,
I just,
yes, people need to hear it. I also I also make sure that my team, even though we're on site a lot of times, I carry a backpack. It has snacks, it has food. I make sure that they're taken care of. I make sure that their birthdays, I specifically buy things. I don't just get them a gift card to this place. No, I specifically go out and find something that reminds me of that person the best that I possibly can. Unless they were like, I really want a gift card. And I'm like, okay, fine.
but you want to make it really personal. Yeah.
Yeah, because I
What is
appreciate
this?
these people.
Yeah. What is the size of the team that you're able to do this for right now?
We have 6 people on our team right now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What do you see like if like over time you were to scale and you have, I don't know, 20 employees? How do you, I mean, and this of course is speculative because you like, but how do you see yourself approaching that when you have more folks as well?
So by the end of the year this year, we plan on having a significant increase in our team members and
Okay,
scaling.
so you're thinking about
Um,
this right now.
oh yeah. So actually, don't worry. So actually, the idea of this is actually going to become a franchise. So we're working on the back
Okay.
end system so that way we can replicate them and then franchise the whole concept out. But
Mhm.
the idea is that on the back end too, we'll also have the Robin Hood Revolution nonprofit portion where we have a warehouse that we can store the items that our clients don't need anymore that might be bogging them down, and then we can redistribute them back into the community, Robin Hood style. So we work with local nonprofits and people coming, refugees coming out of homelessness, kids coming out of CASA, and then we take these items and redistribute them. But the idea is that I'm going to have at least I would like a fleet of vehicles. So that would either be my trucks, and I have a truck and a trailer right now, but probably at least 2 more trucks, and then a couple of just regular like SUVs that when my team members would use for that. And then the idea is that I would have a lead team member in each field. I would have a lead handyman, a lead cleaner, and then lead organizer in business, lead organizer in home, and then lead organizer in grief management, because we meet people in grief or grief cleaning or estates and things like that, and helping them manage it is a completely different overwhelm cycle than what most people are in. So I would want somebody specifically in that area.
Yeah. There's just so like, I'm taking it in because it's just so like well thought out, it sounds like over this past 5 years that you've been building this, like you've been really taking in everything that you're learning. It's like a really fast pace to be able to like expand out into like the most care you could possibly give someone and have all the resources connected in so that it's possible.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yes.
That's the goal. Because when you're overwhelmed, you can't make 20 different phone calls. Like even if I used to refer cleaning contractors to my clients, but then it was one more step that they had to call another person and then make it a schedule and then here's the overwhelming, never-ending task. So I was like, let's just take all that out, because they call us. They'll call us back 3 times to get the cleaner's information, and by that time I could have sent somebody. So I was like, nope, we're just gonna have cleaners. Nope, we're just gonna have a handyman. And then I will follow up with like, you need a plumber? I got a guy, and I know that he does good work. And if he doesn't, he has to respond to me. And I got an electrician, and if he doesn't do good work, he has to respond to me, right? Like you don't have to take care of that. But on the back end, like we're your one-stop shop for overwhelm, for just being overwhelmed. You bring us what it is, and we will figure out how to get you where you want to go. That's our job.
And I kind of see it as like almost like an executive function specialist, because the overwhelm, like you're saying, like especially with executive functioning, like when you're overwhelmed, doing all these extra steps and figuring all this stuff out becomes like exponentially harder. And you're like, I am getting rid of all the barriers to this. Yes. And taking it into what we're offering and like into the business. I want to touch back too, because you mentioned the nonprofit briefly, but we hadn't really even introduced that. So like, tell us about the other arm of things that you're up to.
The other arm of things that we're up to, it's a little backburnered right now because we want to get my team just robustly full. So if you are a business owner, we can help you. If you need any help, we would love to help you. But on the back end, I noticed that these items, my clients are more willing to get rid of items when they know that they're going somewhere impactful. And anybody can take stuff to Goodwill. I actually don't. I prefer not to use Goodwill at all, ever. I use other local nonprofits like ARC or More Than a Meal or CASA or I have a list, right? And then what we do is we have a 20-foot enclosed trailer. And so as we go through and declutter your items from the things that you don't need, we take them, we redistribute them. Everything from like broken electronics go to the local school districts to their STEM department. Old arts and craft supplies also go to the local school districts to their arts department. We take clothing items. People contact us like from the VA and things like that. They will contact us with like need lists, and we try to do whatever we possibly can in order to fill that. However, that portion and that redistributing is killing my margins right now and my profit margins as a business owner. So we are trying to figure out a way that we can do that so I can still be a business owner, because I can't just give everything away all the time. And so we've created a way that, yes, we'll do the haul away, but there is a small fee, which is still like a fifth of the fee that you would get from most local junk haulers, but we're actually taking these items and redistributing them so that way they get to the places that they need to be. And again, it's one-stop shop. And then if you need a trailer load, it's a bigger, like if we're taking a 20-foot enclosed trailer, it's a good chunk, but it's a 20-foot enclosed trailer. And we had a house last year that had 11 trailer loads of all nice items. It was really nice stuff. They had 2 houses. It just accumulated. It's really easy just to buy the thing when you can't find the thing, and then you've got 17 things. And so this is where we just come in and just do an overhaul.
And so I almost just lost my thought. Okay. So So you've been sort of mentioning how like you're really connected into the community in so many ways, not only from like your clients, but then the different folks you're working with, and then now even with the redistribution. So what was that journey like for you in becoming so like connected in with the community and these resources, and how do you foster that over time?
Well, I think I've always been connected. My dad had a permanent position at the Air Force Academy here. He was a
Okay,
liaison
so
for
you've been in
District
this town.
20. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
native. He was on the District 20 school board for over 20, 25 years. He was on the Veterans Day Parade, and they did most of the Veterans Day Parade items. So I watched fundraising and community service ever since I was a child. My mom would drop me off at the library, and I would peel stickers off of the library books. Man, I loved that. It was so good. This is how I know I'm in the right field. Um, because I peel stickers all the time. Um, but it's that aspect of like watching my parents actively give back to the community. Because there's people that are like, that just sit and do nothing all day. And, you know, that's fine. But then there's like people like my parents who any opportunity to volunteer, any opportunity to talk to somebody, any opportunity to do something for the community. My dad volunteers his time with the Black Rose Society, you know, any opportunity to just integrate yourself into any part of the community and then start associating and aligning yourself with the people that hold the same values as you. And by doing that over and over again, and then also just doing good work, making sure that my team members are taken care of, making sure that my clients are taken care of, making sure that the community is taken care of, like however that might be. By doing those three things, you just collectively keep reverberating everything you put back. It'll come right back to you. It'll keep coming back to you. And people then start recognizing you in the community because you really do have the opportunity to stand on business, and you create that brand and reputation for yourself. I mean, reputation is everything. And I think the more you are able to connect and find the people that can connect, it's not always about who can help your business. It's about who you can connect to people sometimes.
Yeah. So this, I mean, and what you're relating to is the sense that you are doing a lot of things all the time. So how are you also approaching it in a neuro-affirming way for yourself? Or maybe it's like a journey, you know, we figured that out over time, but like, how do you sort of take care of yourself as well as the founder and doing all these amazing things?
That's a great question. So let me tell you how I care for myself as a recovering people pleaser who likes to take care of other people and rip myself out. Hi. I have a checklist of things that I have to do every day. Eating has been one of the hardest things, as we all know, for neurospicy people. We don't eat. Safe foods are a real thing. Sometimes I will get so hyper-focused. So I actually have an accountability buddy who literally texts me every day to see if I've eaten, and drank water and sang, because singing is good for my soul. And I need to do things that are good for my soul. So I sing,
Yeah.
I stretch, and I make sure that I eat 2 full meals a day. Which for a neurospicy person is a lot of meals. And then honestly, at the end of the day, I sit back and I think about my coping mechanisms. You know, if I'm having a hard day or I need to like rage out, I go to the junkyard and I rage out. And one of my friends, Ray, with Junker Move Now, we've been talking about creating a rage room together on a regular basis because it really does help.
Yeah.
I get massages, you know, I take care of myself in that aspect. But the biggest thing that I do is I budget my time. Because at the end of the day, time blindness is a real thing for people with ADHD. And if I don't actively budget my time, then I won't get anywhere or do anything. And that includes me eating lunch. Because as long as I actually have a lunch break in my day, I've now trained my body by eating. I actually now feel that I'm hungry. So now I'm eating, where before I would completely bypass that entire feeling. And when people say feel your feelings, they're talking about understanding the sensation that is associated in your body with the thing that you're feeling.
Well, okay, so time, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, like especially with the time blindness to be budgeting your time. So what does that look like for you, maybe on like a weekly basis? Do you use, and then like even like the practical sense of, I use like, you know, Google Calendar and I block things out, or like what does it look like for you?
I use Google Calendar. I put blocks in my schedule. I am on site with clients 2 to 2.5 days a week. So roughly half the week, I have to just block my full days in advance. So that way clients have time to book with me. And then the other 2.5 days is filled with either, you know, me working on planning, because how am I going to, I can't just show up and then start planning. I have to actually have planning time set aside for my clients. So planning time, meetings, stretching. I also do an integration process. I don't just say 9 to 3, I'm working. I am a single mom that also, my dad's 82. So I'm managing a lot of different things on a regular basis. And there's no possible way that I can't like just book appointments after 4 o'clock. So I actively put blocks in my schedule for me to schedule my own appointments. On Tuesday mornings, I'm typically doing personal appointments, either for myself, my dad, my kids, whoever it might be. And I integrate blocks so that way also I don't get burnt out. So I can go from here. And then after this, I might go to my PT appointment, and then I'm going to go to another meeting, or I might have a networking thing, or this, that, and the other. But I'm able to look at it. And then that way also I'm able to say, okay, wow, I've been doing a lot of marketing, but marketing isn't really paying off. Or, hey, I've been doing a lot of these networking meetings, and I'm noticing that I'm not really getting anything from that. You're able to actually look back at your schedule and hold yourself accountable at the same time. But just start with something as simple as hey, from this time to this time, these are working hours. These are play hours.
I love that you get specific too, though, so that you're like, this is working hours, and I need to schedule things. So that's a specific piece,
Yeah. And I need to also fill my own cup. So that might mean I'm having lunch with a friend on a random Tuesday because I can. And that's going to fill my cup so that way I can continue on through the week. And I'm not going to have lunch with my friend every single day, but maybe twice a month, I'm going to make sure in the middle of the day, I'm scheduling a lunch. I'm scheduling something fun. And that looks also like my team member got Casa Bonita tickets, and he's like, I got Casa Bonita tickets for tomorrow at 3. I gotta leave at 1:30. And I'm like, okay, get me some sopapillas. That's all I'm asking. Raise the flag, right? But that's important, and it fills his soul. It doesn't have to fill my soul in order for it to be valid for him. So let's figure out a way that we can get you to Casa Bonita so you can go do the thing, okay?
I love this.
I don't know.
You sound like you'd be awesome to work with.
I am.
I'm glad you know it. You own it too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that also, I think there's a part of humility where you have to actually show up and be like, I do a good job at what I do, but I'm not going to shove it in people's faces and say I'm the best. I'm not the best. I am by far the best. I am just very unique, and I have an interesting perspective, and it might help you.
And you've been showing up to that perspective for these for years now, and it sounds like you've gotten into a really nice flow. What how, I don't know what the question is, kind of how long, or how did you get to that place where you have a really good flow with this? Was it automatic because you've kind of been building that in other areas before you started the business, or did you kind of have to learn that in the first couple of years or something, or what was that like
I
for you?
have never had a flow. It has always been healthy. It is. Just want to set that expectation.
Yeah. Okay. You're I'm always kind of figuring that.
I am always kind of figuring it out, because at any point that I start to have that flow, there's the next step. If you're playing a video game, you're going to meet the next boss. You're going to go on the next quest. At no point do you just sit, typically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's interesting. So then your approach is you almost have to get used to the fact that you're always kind of growing in a way, or
because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only thing that's still in the universe is death.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about, since you have this experience, you're things seem like it's going well. You're expanding by the end of this year. Lots of things are happening. What would you sort of suggest for people starting out? So say they are also ADHD or neurodivergent in a different way. Maybe they don't have all the capacity in the world, but where would you start if you were starting at the beginning?
Capacity.
Okay.
You start
you
at
start
your
with
capacity level. No, I think that it's imperative that you take an actual assessment of your capacity and then start working with that. Because what we do typically is we will be like, I can do all the things. And then we try to do all the things. And then we run really fast because we can do all the things. And then we burn ourselves out. So my favorite thing to tell everybody is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. So start with, what does your capacity look like? Are you a single person that doesn't have kids and isn't taking care of aging parents? Cool. You got more capacity than other people. Do you maybe have ADHD and you have bad days and good days? Cool. Start there. Are you a woman with ADHD? Start by tracking your cycle and work around that. Capacity.
Capacity. Well, and also the sense of like really getting aware of it, like from a place of not judging it, but like getting really curious and like validating this is what my capacity is. And so this is where I can start.
And recognizing what your signs of burnout are before you're burnt out. Because if you're able to do those two things, you've now set the foundation for longevity.
Right. So understanding your capacity and then being able to see the signs of burnout before it occurs.
And what those look like in you, because they might look like me, I get real bitchy. I am not kind. I am irritable. I get, and so like, that's not good leadership. No ma'am. No ma'am. So I have to recognize that before I create even bigger problems in my team than me just being overwhelmed, right? And so understanding your capacity, and that's where like time budgeting really comes in handy, because then you're actively able to like put it out onto something and be like, oh, yeah, I really don't have time to do those two things because I do have to drive and it's going to be 30 minutes between those two. I should probably put a block time, and don't forget to put block times in for driving. We can't teleport yet, even though I wish we could.
It's true though. Those little things that we don't necessarily think of, but it can take that capacity. I know like sometimes for me, I realize if I'm already overstimulated a bit, adding driving, especially if it's in rush hour, like it's going to be taking that energy. So like in this conversation around capacity, it's also understanding like what drains your energy, what doesn't. And it's okay if that's like whatever your things are is okay and important.
Yeah. Like I go to some networking groups and there's like 60 people there and people want to talk to me and I'm vibrant and I'm bubbly and I get it, but I leave and I am done. My spoons are spent. I am peopled out. Like I have given all that I can give. Please do not collect $200 or pass go. I am in my swing recovering, right? Like, but I also understand that if I'm going to that networking event, I need to make sure that my cup is full so it can be empty and then I can refill it. Because at the end of the day, your cups are refillable. But it's up to you to figure out what fills them and what drains them, because you're the flow master after them.
Well, I like how you said that too, because once you have that understanding of what is going to drain the energy, then how did you have? It's like you sort of hug that space with the other two, like before and the after. The beforehand, how do I actually provide myself that energy? And then the after, like what do I do to take care of that?
Exactly. And that's going to be a lot of trial and error, and that's okay. And understanding that you are going to fail. And if your expectation is not to fail ever, then, well, you're going to be sorely disappointed through life forever. And that's just a kind of a crappy place to be. So why not sit on the side of lessons?
Yeah, exactly. So being willing to learn through trial and error, like what is this going to happen? Because it can be hard, right? Like when we start coming to these things with more consciousness and we're trying to be more aware, and we do that thing where we schedule the networking meeting right next to the other meeting we have, and then we burn out and we have to go into another meeting, and like that was way too much.
And we're like, why am I crying in my car? We're like, oh wait, I've had like 7 meetings and a podcast today. Did I eat lunch? No, I should probably drink some water, right? Like I'm basically just a sad plant.
Yeah, well, it's true, and I'm hearing you say like really have compassion for the fact that it is a learning journey. You're going to have those moments where, like you scheduled too many things and now you're overwhelmed, but like that's part of the learning, and that's okay. And that's where you give yourself that compassion. You figure out, okay, now what do I need? Even though I've hit the point where I'm bawling in my car, but I can still take care of myself now in this moment, like whatever's happening here.
And you can cry. Like, I don't know if anybody's said this in business, but you're going to cry. You're going to cry. You're going to cry, and it's going to be okay. That's the point. And you're going to get through it. And that's why you have grit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and even in that sense, that it's almost like that validating of your own strength. Like you're like going into entrepreneurship is a courageous thing. especially if you're like founding something like you were talking about as someone who's, years into an established business, like what that means being a founder and being a leader, that like everything comes back to you,
Yeah.
so like, and I'm actually, let me ask you about that. I was going to make this point about like, that it's a courageous thing, but what has it been like for you in becoming the person you are now? Like, I don't know if you went into this business thinking I'm going to have all these team members and I'm going to like expand out into, the franchises, but like what has like changed for you in your own self as you become the leader that you are now?
When I started this, I was pretty much a stay-at-home mom. I have now been divorced for 3 years. I lost my mother. COVID happened. And last
Yeah.
year, I had to reconstruct my wrist. So as a leader in a business, you have to create fail-safes so that you can not lead at some point. Like
Hmm.
you have to, I don't know if I'm answering the question, actually. I think I,
Actually, that's a good point too. I'd like to hear you talk about that because that will be something that someone would have to learn. Because especially as a solopreneur, you start out by yourself. You're like doing all the things. You start
yeah.
bringing on teammates, and you mentioned earlier about that does mean you have to release control. But now you're talking about another layer of it too. Is there's times over these years that you have this business, like because it's so successful, because you're being neuro-affirming for yourself and other people, that that you are not gonna like. There's gonna be times when you just can't be there. You're gonna have
Mhm.
life things come up or pandemics or whatever. And so talk to us about like how did you build in the capacity in your team and your business so that you could not be there at certain times?
I quit my job. I went to Angela last year and I said, I quit. And she said, no, ma'am, you're going to go take a nap. And I said, oh, but I'm the boss. And she said, yeah, I'm going to go take a nap. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to go take a nap. So I went and took a nap, and Angela basically took over my business for a good chunk of time, which was one of the best things that could have possibly happened because it gave her the
Mm,
opportunity to figure out how we can do this without everything always being on me. Because any moment that like it hit the fan for me and I wasn't able to show up, the whole team crumbled. And so when I first started this, I started it to humor my friends, and then I did it, and I was like, okay, I could do this like as a stay-at-home mom, and it's just extra cash, and then I was like, oh, I could replace my full-time job with this, and I love it. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, I see the value I bring. Like I now have all this self-worth and I'm recognizing like, I don't necessarily think I'm being treated the way that I should be treated. So I left my husband. And from there, it was very much like, wow, I really can do amazing things. Wait a minute. People actually, because this was, I mean, he was a man that was like, talking to you for 10 minutes is too much time, Lauren. And that was the kind of,
mm.
that's how I was taught to. Now people pay me to speak to them about things.
I love that your
Just
entrepreneur
saying.
that your entrepreneurial journey like has been a huge part of your own just personal journey, like awakening to like how powerful you are as a person and your skills and your capacities. Oh, I
That's
love that.
everybody. That's everybody's skill. Once you awaken yourself and you recognize the worth and the impact that you have, the positive impact that you have, that's when everything starts aligning and falling into place for you because you recognize what you bring to the table. And you don't have to shout it from the
Mm,
rooftops, but you do have to give back. And by giving back, people will see that light and be attracted to it. And that's the
yeah.
part that I had no idea. I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be looking at like creating a nonprofit and eventually a multi-million-dollar franchise business, and that's the goal for the next 10 years, and I would have told you you were out of your damn mind. There's no way I would be that person. But it's been 5 years. And those last 5 years of my life, I have done things that I never thought that I would be able to do. I've seen things and helped people. I have conquered my own mind more often than not, which is really the biggest part. And then after that, it's just been taking care of myself. Because again, I'm the master of my own flow. So as long as I can create a space or a vessel that I am overflowing, then I am overflowing into those people around me, whether it's my family, whether it's my business, whether it's my friends, whether it's my lovers, whatever it might be, I'm overflowing into them. And by doing
Yeah.
that, they then eventually learn to overflow, and then they learn to overflow. And then we all rise by lifting others, right? It's the same concept.
Mm.
So that's really at the end of the day, what it boils down to for me is that it's really about understanding yourself and bettering yourself, because no matter what you do at the end of the day, it starts with you.
Hmm. Well, and I love how you said that, you don't have to shout from the rooftops, but there is that aspect, like right now when you were talking about how you have to, like, you don't have to, but the invitation is that you actually own that. Like, you have to say it to you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of like that process of stepping into your own power and like all of this amazing stuff that you've seen come of being able to do that. And I also want to say too that like I really appreciate how vulnerable you are in sharing that you sort of come to that place of being able to step back for a time and like honor the fact that you can't always have everything come on to you as the leader, came from what we were just saying before about the learning the lessons and that you had to basically find the lesson the hard way where you were trying to do it until you could not.
Yeah. And I couldn't. And I mean, like, I was let down. I was like, my hand doesn't work. I can't even put pants on. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm cooked. Like, I don't know how we're going to survive this, friends. And we did, and we made it, and we revamped things, and we added on services, and we created better team systems and, standard operating procedures, and we've got better software, and all these things now work in the background, and I could take a sick day tomorrow, and my team will still work. And worst case scenario, I just have another organizer come on for me because I have access to other organizers now.
Yeah, well, and I just lost it again. Sorry.
You're good.
Something about how I think I just love all of your energy and and that you're able to just navigate things so well. That's what it was. It was around that. I feel like this ties so well to at the very beginning of the conversation. You mentioned you have to trust your team.
Yes.
And that you were able to go from I'm quitting to Angela saying, how about you just take a nap? And you being able to choose that instead because you trust Angela and you trust your team. And so like it really does sound so much like that's a foundational part too, even in the learning of hard lessons and learning it the hard way, that having that team that you trust is a huge part of being able to navigate those moments.
Yeah. I mean, if we were rowing and we were all rowing in different directions, we wouldn't get where we wanted to go.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
And I
got to sort of be moving in the same direction.
Right. And why hire somebody if I don't trust them? If I don't trust you immediately, then I'm not hiring you.
Mm. So you have so when you get like take it on hiring, like what is that sense? Like how do you tell that you trust somebody? Is it like a gut sense or like?
There's a gut sense. There's also just pattern recognition. Like I have worked in a lot of different areas. So like I can see some pattern recognition in like just the way that you show up to the interview, or if you don't show up to the interview, or if you have transportation or you don't take accountability. Like that's a big one. And then I like to throw like a handful of random questions in there that typically keep people on their toes. And then that gives me a lot of information.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's based off of like my gut. I have to learn to trust my gut, and my gut has rarely ever led me astray. And yeah, I've definitely invested in some team members and gotten the short end of the stick, but you're going to get the short end of the stick with human beings sometimes. It just is. And once I understand that, then what I do is I give full trust up front, and then it's up to you as to whether or not you maintain that trust or you lose it.
Mm. And it sounds too like that trusting other people also is really tied to you trusting yourself. So having that self-trust helps you to know within yourself, like, what am I feeling from this person? What am I getting from my own recognition? I'm trusting the fact that I have experience being able to like read people and sense what's going to work for this team or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trusting yourself. That's the hardest part. It's one of the hardest parts, especially with ADHD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, constantly being told that we're too much, always being told that we're defiant in some way just because we ask questions, right? Like, okay, but so like going against that and then being like, no, my gut said this thing and it did prove positive. My gut said this and it did, do this. And then just being okay with the fact that you might be wrong sometimes. That's okay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I just love that, like, you show up with so much grace for yourself and for others. And in that, I mean, like, compassion, right? That it's okay. Very much sort of like a framework of validation for myself and for other people that, like, whatever's happening, this is okay. And I get the sense from you, too, that you're very much about, if there is something that's kind of a barrier or we're struggling with something, we can make it through.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, exactly.
There are solutions to everything. There's always something that can be done in a different way in order for us to be able to figure it out. It's always figure outable, right? It's just as to whether or not we have the time, energy, resources to invest in a solution.
Yes, and that comes back to what you mentioned earlier about like capacity and the other one that I've forgotten since. But
Capacity and trust and budgeting
and
your
trust
time.
and budgeting
Because time is a resource, and what we don't realize is that we can spin our wheels and just waste our time. That's what wasting time is.
Yeah. So, okay. So tell us about, how do people connect in with you? Or maybe just right before that, like what's coming up next? I know you mentioned the franchising. Is there anything even more immediate that like this is the cool things that's going on in my business?
We're going to be hosting a clothing swap coming up in February at Crown Studio. So keep an eye out for dates and deets. So you'll be able to bring any old clothes that you might not love anymore. I call them "We're Not Friends Anymore" clothes. Bring them in. You'll get some tickets, and then you'll be able to swap with other people for other pieces based off of that. We like to be able to give back to the community in that way. We've got a couple of workshops coming up. There's one at Observer Ranch on March 22nd for organizing, and then there's going to be one in April with Kitchen Tune-Up regarding kitchens. But outside of that, we are just rocking and rolling with the handyman portion and the cleaning portion and the organizing portion, just getting in and creating clarity in people's lives, whether big or small. So,
and that's awesome. And so a lot of it's local in the Colorado Springs area. Do you do anything virtually in the way of workshops or anything? Or is that
yes. We're actually working on an ADHD business workshop with a Forbes business coach, actually, Michelle Kelly. And so that will be released hopefully within the next 6 weeks or so, that you'd be able to get in and purchase. And then on top of that too, I actually work all over Colorado. We work all over the United States. I've been flown to Florida, South Carolina. We can do virtuals. I can give homework. A lot of times clients like me to be in the space, and I'm okay with that. So we can create a space that functions for you. And like I said, New Mexico, Florida, South Carolina, New Jersey, all over the United States. So it's an investment, and it doesn't have to be something that's recurring necessarily. It can be something that can be a reset, and then you can touch base with us and we can do coaching virtually or whatever it might be. We can work it out.
I love that. Okay, so how can people find you? I will have the links in the description. I always like people just to say as well. So if they're excited about what you've been talking about, which hopefully they are, because I'm sure they would be, where do they find you?
They can find us on online, www.clarityforyourchaos, all spelled out. We also have Instagram, Clarity, the number 4, Your Chaos. And then we're also on TikTok and on Facebook, Clarity for Your Chaos, just spelled out, pretty easy. And then you can give us a call, 719-660-0678. Who could you bless with your mess?
I love it so much. Thank you so much, Lauren, for being here. Thank you for sharing your enthusiasm and your wisdom. And I'm just really excited to see what's happening over this next few years with everything that you're about and your mission.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to be on your podcast and to reach more of the NeuroSpicy community. We need as much support as we possibly can, and it's an honor to be one of those pillars of support in the community.